Welcome back. In this hour, we're taking a look back at the Oscar Pistorius murder trial. The Paralympian took to the witness stand in his own defense in April, but his evidence had to be adjourned repeatedly as he broke down and cried uncontrollably. The athlete had pleaded not guilty, saying he mistook Reeva Steenkamp for an intruder hiding in the toilet of his home in Pretoria.
I'd like to apologise and say that there's not a moment, and there hasn't been a moment since this tragedy happened that I haven't thought about your family.
Oscar Pistorius also says he's been living on a cocktail of antidepressants and sleeping pills since Steenkamp's death last year. On one occasion, his fear drove him to hide inside a cupboard.
I'm scared to sleep. For several reasons, but I have terrible nightmares about things that happen at night, where I wake up and I can smell blood, and I wake up to being terrified.
The athlete also testified that he's been a victim of crime on numerous occasions, and that living in a high security estate didn't make him feel any safer. He said he fired 4 shots through a toilet door in the early hours of Valentine's Day last year in the belief that he was defending her from an intruder. "I was simply trying to protect Reeva," he told the court, his voice quivering with emotion.
When I met Reeva, I think it was just a blessing. I've always wanted to have a partner that was a Christian. She was a very strong Christian.
Court was adjourned early because Pistorius was emotionally overwhelmed. He hasn't even begun to testify about Steenkamp's death, and cross-examination at the hands of Prosecutor Nel is likely to be extremely tough.
And indeed it was, as expected. State Prosecutor Nel went straight for the jugular during his cross-examination of Pistorius. The state believes he killed Steenkamp following an argument.
You shot and killed her. Won't you take responsibility for that?
I did, my lady.
Now say it then. Say yes. I shot and killed Reeva Steenkamp.
I did, my lady.
State Prosecutor Nel didn't hold back when he began cross-examining Oscar Pistorius. Nel used this footage of Pistorius targeting watermelons at a shooting range.
It's a lot softer than brain, but it's like a zombie stopper. That wasn't me laughing in the background, but that was my voice saying those words. I didn't at any point compare it to a human or shooting at a human.
It's softer than brains. Who else got brains?
But Nel didn't stop there. He showed a crime scene picture of Steenkamp's bloodied head and tried to get the athlete to look at the photograph. The image sent shockwaves around the courtroom, and Pistorius crumbled under the pressure.
Take responsibility for what you've done, Mr. Pistorius.
I've taken responsibility, but I will not look at a picture where I'm tormented by what I saw and felt that night. As I picked Reeva up, my fingers touched her head. I remember. I don't have to look at a picture. I was there.
It's the same thing as the watermelon. You had it now in practice, mister. It's softer than brains.
I think that is extremely unfair to say that is the same thing as a watermelon.
The prosecutor also tried to discredit Pistorius, saying his testimony differed from his bail application. During his bail, the athlete said he had gone onto the balcony to fetch a fan, but in court, he said he hadn't actually stepped onto the balcony. And then Nel pressed him on this critical question.
The fact is, did you shoot at the intruders with intention to shoot them?
My lady, I shot because I was, at that point, with that split moment, I believed somebody was coming out to attack me. That's what made me fire out of fear. I didn't have time to think. I discharged my firearm.
Let's make it easier. Because you feared, you shot at them. Am I right or am I wrong? And you have to, please, this is important.
I didn't shoot at anyone. I didn't intend to shoot at someone. I shot out of fear, my lady.
The prosecutor accused him of being more concerned about the implications of his answers rather than simply telling the truth.
Pistorius underwent 5 days of relentless cross-examination. On the last day of his evidence, the state finally questioned him about the moments when he shot Riva Steenkamp. The state said his account of the shooting is completely improbable and also a lie.
You knew that Riva was behind the door and you shot at her. That is the only thing that makes sense.
Prosecutor Gerrie Nel painstakingly took Oscar Pistorius through each moment of the morning he shot and killed Riva Steenkamp. Nel accused Pistorius of not checking on Steenkamp when he thought there were intruders in the house. He pointed out that the couple could have simply left the bedroom. Instead, Pistorius claims that he picked up his gun in a panicked state and headed for the toilet.
You're vulnerable, but you go towards the danger.
That's correct, my lady.
Why would you do that?
Because if I'd stayed where I was, my lady, Riva and I would be in danger.
No, nobody would have been in danger because there was no intruder.
The state argues Steenkamp ran and hid in the toilet to get away from Pistorius.
Of your whole version, Mr. Pistorius, this is the most improbable. Riva at that stage is 3 meters away from you in a toilet. Why would she not say a thing?
I don't know, my lady.
No, it's not true. The only reason is that it's not true, Mr. Pistorius. She would have responded.
It's not true, my lady.
She wasn't scared of anything, except you.
Nel went even further, saying Steenkamp must have screamed when he shot her. Pistorius conceded he may not have heard Steenkamp screaming after he opened fire because the loud gunshots had deafened him.
And then the trial took a very dramatic turn. A psychiatrist who testified for the defense said Pistorius suffered from an anxiety disorder and this could have affected his behavior on the day he killed his girlfriend.
Specialist psychiatrist Professor Merel Foster has painted a picture of a troubled Oscar Pistorius. She interviewed the athlete on 2 occasions last week and also had consultations with his family and friends. She found that despite his enormous success on the track, the athlete had a poor self-image and was in fact ashamed of his disability. She also believes that Pistorius is more likely to fight when confronted with danger rather than run away. But perhaps most pivotal for the defense, Foster diagnosed Pistorius with a pervasive, generalized anxiety disorder. She says this condition could have made the athlete believe that his life was in danger on the day that Riva Steenkamp was killed, when in fact he wasn't. But State Prosecutor Gerrie Nel hit back. He argued that if this is true, Pistorius must be sent for psychiatric evaluation in accordance with the law.
Taking that into account, his physical disability and his general anxiety disorder, and that in terms of Section 78(2) should lead to a referral.
It is a possibility that the court could consider.
Well, the state won the argument and Pistorius was sent for 30 days of observation. And the finding? He did not suffer from any mental defect when he killed Steenkamp.
Oscar Pistorius understood the difference between right and wrong at the time he shot Riva Steenkamp. Both the state and defense have accepted the findings of 3 psychiatrists and a psychologist who assessed the athlete as an outpatient at Weskopie's Psychiatric Hospital. The evaluation was prompted by forensic psychiatrist Dr. Merel Foster's testimony that Pistorius's generalized anxiety disorder, as well as his physical vulnerability as a double amputee, may have affected him on the day that Riva Steenkamp was killed. Pistorius' vulnerability was a key factor in court. Dr. Gerald Versveld, the orthopedic surgeon who amputated his legs as a baby, testified that the Paralympian had limited mobility on his stumps.
On his stumps, he is seriously vulnerable in a dangerous situation, with a severely impaired ability to flee, severely impaired ability to ward off danger without a weapon, and in danger of falling should he put the stump down incorrectly.
But State Prosecutor Gerrie Nel questioned whether Dr. Versveld's assessment was objective. He also raised doubts about Pistorius' lack of mobility. The prosecutor says Pistorius' actions on the night do not align with Dr. Versveld's testimony.
Walked back to the room on his stumps. In the room, He searched. There were at least fans standing in the room. He missed them all. He never fell. He searched the room. He even searched behind the curtains on his thumbs. He never fell. He was able to do that. It must then be possible. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. It happened.
Nel tried to use Versveld's testimony to raise doubts about Pistorius' account of the shooting, but he didn't question the doctor's evidence that Pistorius would have struggled to swing a cricket bat at the door while on his stumps. The state insists that he did so, but Pistorius says that he hit the door after putting on his prosthetic legs.
Well, just a few days later, Pistorius' legal team concluded its case. Initially, the trial was set down for just 3 weeks, but it kept the country's attention for nearly 6 months.
The Oscar Pistorius murder trial was the first criminal case to be broadcast in its entirety in South African history. It had thousands of people glued to their screens and radios. And if people were hoping for drama, well, they were not disappointed. It was an opportunity for the legal fraternity to demonstrate transparent judicial processes. And for two of the country's top legal minds, advocates Gerrie Nel for the state and Barry Roux for the defense, to battle it out. But now that it's over, the defense claims televising the trial may have affected its case.
Just that it's on record that we were unable to call a number of witnesses who simply refuse to testify because they say they don't want they protected against television, but they don't want their voices all over the world. We had to take a decision. There's nothing that we can do about it. After consultations, we realized that would not really alleviate the problem. So with that in mind, then we closed the case for the defense.
At least one legal expert believes this may lead to an appeal.
The attack would be, in my opinion, that a fair trial wasn't received by Oscar Pistorius and that he wasn't able to properly present his defense.
Pistorius claims he thought his girlfriend was an intruder and that fear drove him to pump 4 holes into the toilet door. But the state believes Pistorius shot Reeva Steenkamp in a fit of rage following a fierce argument. It's portrayed the athlete as a reckless gun owner and selfish lover.
And when we come back in a moment, we'll take you back to the very closing arguments presented by both sides. In early August, we'll also talk to a legal expert on the possible outcomes the court may reach.